With Mitchell Robinson officially out for the rest of the season, we have to discuss some other options for the New York Knicks who could step in and play that center role. So, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. My name is Chris, and we are going to jump right into things today, as we always do, because as you may have seen a couple days ago, it came out that Mitchell Robinson will be missing the rest of the season as the Knicks have applied for the disabled player exception for Robinson, as Shams reported Wednesday, shortly after the Knicks beat the Nets, that Mitch will be out for the rest of the season, and teams can apply for the disabled player exception if one of their players suffers a long-term injury. It's worth half the player's salary, so in Mitch's case, $7.8 million, and can act as a trade or a free agent exception. Now, essentially, as it says on that Athletic article, which we're ripping a lot of this from, so huge shout out to Fred Katz for writing an amazing article. But essentially what that means is the Knicks can use that $7.8 million as cap space if they wanted to make a trade. They'll have $7.8 million to work with, so it'll be easier to make trades. They won't have to match salaries completely equally. If they say they want to trade for someone who had a contract that's $11.8 million, just a random number, I'm not thinking of any center specifically, and the Knicks wanted to trade someone who is who's getting a $4 million contract, then what happens is you can use that disabled player exception and trade it to the other team. Let's say, I don't know, the Grizzlies. Let's just say there's a center on the Grizzlies making $11.8 million. The Knicks decide, okay, we have a guy who we're paying $4 million, and we'll give them our Mitchell Robinson 7.8 disabled player exception. Obviously, that does not mean the Knicks are giving them Mitchell Robinson. It just means that they'll give that salary exception. Now that we have that under control, hopefully I explained that well, let's talk about some other options. Who the New York Knicks can bring in. We have, a lot of names to go through. There are 6 guys that I highlighted after we'll go through a few names. So let's do that right now, guys. So some trade candidates who aren't playing much or on expiring contracts with losing teams are guys like Andre Drummond, Bismack Biyombo, and Xavier Tillman. Biyombo and Tillman both on the Memphis Grizzlies. The Sacramento Kings have a few veteran centers who fit into the DPE, such as Alex Len and JaVale McGee. And the Clippers are succeeding with Mason Plumlee out, so he could also be someone who's eligible. Biyombo and Tillman I don't think are going anywhere because the Grizzlies have such a hole at center because Jaren Jackson is a power forward. He is just not a center. Brandon Clark is still coming back from the Achilles injury. He should be back around middle February, but he ruptured his Achilles. He was out a long time. He's going to need some time to ramp it back up. I don't think the Grizzlies would be willing to thin out at big man, especially now that Ja Morant is back. They won their first game with Morant. He had a game winner. They beat the New Orleans Pelicans, who are a respectable team. So now the Grizzlies are going to push forward and hope that they can get back into the playoff picture. And I think that takes out Biyombo and Xavier Tillman. But I love the idea of Andre Drummond as a guy who could back up Isaiah Hartenstein or even start and sort of play that Mitch role. He's become better as a defender as his careers went on. He's obviously not Mitch, but his rebounding is elite. He's probably a better defensive rebounder than Mitch, and his offensive rebounding, it's not Mitchell Robinson, but if there's anyone who can get as close to Mitch, other than Steven Adams, who's also out for the season, it might just be Andre Drummond. I love the idea of Drummond. He's probably my favorite name on the list. However, we move on because we can't talk about every guy individually for too long. It's too many names here. The Bulls are at the bottom of the East, even though they've been winning since Zach LaVine got hurt, which has made people wonder about the availability of the Bulls' other center other than Drummond, Nikola Vucevic. He's a center, but he's very different than Mitchell Robinson. You guys know Vooch. He's been around for a while. It's not like he's some new, unknown name. We know what Vooch does. He's an offensive center. He's good in the post. Usually he's a good shooter, though this year he's been struggling from deep. He's a good rebounder. Overall, solid offensive center, but I think there's a lack of defense there that Tom Thibodeau would not like, and I think the fact that he is on a new 3-year, $60 million contract, so he'll be getting paid $20 million over the next 2 years after this season, is a lot for the Knicks when they basically just need to look for a rental. Also, I just don't like the fit. The Knicks don't need another guy who's going to want shots. I think that's one of the Bulls' problems, and it's why they've been winning so much recently without LaVine, is they have less guys demanding shots. We don't need a 4th player, really a 5th player on the Knicks who wants to shoot the ball a lot. And that's what you would get with Vooch. Also, it's a huge contract. I don't want to touch Vooch. I think that's an absurdly awful idea. And there's not much really else to say on that subject, so let's move on to another grouping, which, if we're ruling out the Vucevic archetype, that's saying no to Christian Wood also because he's an offensive big man. The Pistons can't win a game and employ 472 centers, as Fred Katz said, but he is correct. But they don't really fit with New York's preferred identity, as Jalen Duren is the only one who does, but he's too good and too young to trade. Isaiah Stewart just got an extension, which makes a deal for him nearly impossible. Darielle and I actually talked a little bit about Isaiah Stewart the other day, and the Pistons in general. Marvin Bagley's not the defender the Knicks would require. He's actually an atrocious defender. There was around 3 months ago a video from YouTuber Mike Korzemba discussing that Marvin Bagley is an atrocious defender. And then you got someone like James Wiseman, who's yet to prove he can contribute to a winning team. If I were to pick anyone from the Pistons who I would want, that's not Jalen Duren, because Duren's very similar to Mitch, but younger and more raw and not there yet, it would be James Wiseman. I think he's shown the most as a rim protector, and he has not proven he can be on a winning team, but he only played so much with the Warriors, and the Pistons, they wouldn't be good even if James Wiseman is good. The Pistons are just brutal. Who knows what's going on with them? They should not be as bad as they are, but they are. And that's really the end of it. The team has 2 wins as the time of I'm filming this video. However, they are favored to beat the Utah Jazz tonight, but this video is not going to come out the day that I'm filming it, so who knows? Maybe they broke their streak. Congrats to the Pistons if they did, and if they didn't, well, maybe next time. But yeah, I think Wiseman's a decent option. But outside of that, as we continue moving on, we look at my favorite of all the options, which is Clint Capella. Considering the Hawks just extended promising young big man Onyeka Okongwu less than a week ago, Atlanta experimented less than a week ago with the 2 starting centers together. But Okongwu isn't a power forward. Trading Capella, who has another year after this on his contract and is owed $20.6 million in 2023-24 this year, and then $22.3 million in the 24-25 season, could open up playing time for Okongwu, who has shown more of a mid-range ability while Capella can't shoot at all. Atlanta is only 12-5 and could look to save money if they remain outside of the playoff picture, especially just or low in the play-in or something. I could see that being the case. And see if maybe having a guy who can hit the mid-range like Okongwu can open up that team's offense a little bit more. Who knows? I love the idea of Clint Capella. I think you can use Fournier's contract and that disabled player exception to craft a really nice deal. Or Fournier's contract and Jericho Sims and craft a really nice deal. You throw in, Capella's value is not that high at all. I think you can get away with just giving 2 or 3 second-rounders instead of giving up any of your firsts. Bringing in Clint Capella as a rental, and then hopefully in the offseason, the thing is, Isaiah Hartenstein's playing so well, he's probably going to get paid by someone else to where the Knicks can't afford to keep him. So then you either use Capella as a backup to Mitchell Robinson and have Capella as the best backup center in the NBA, or you move him and you use that $22 million in some sort of tradable contract, flip Clint Capella, just use his money because you're going to be out of Evan Fournier's contract. Evan Fournier also is an expiring deal because he has that team option, so it'll open up cap space for the Hawks. The Knicks take on an extra year, and if they want to make a trade this summer, such as, I don't know, who's someone we haven't ever mentioned on this channel? Oh, Donovan Mitchell, him, because we never talk about him. You could use that contract, and obviously that'd be a 3-team trade because the Cavs have 500 people also who are big men on their team. And, in general, that's not nearly enough for Donovan Mitchell. You're still throwing massive picks their way and assets. Or just any star who the Knicks could possibly trade for this summer. We don't know who's going to request a trade this summer yet. It depends a lot on the playoffs, so that contract could prove helpful to the Knicks in the future. I think it's worth the investment of giving Jericho Sims or the disabled player exception along with Evan Fournier's deal a couple seconds, maybe a very highly protected first at most. I don't hate the idea, personally. I think that's probably the best move the Knicks to make to stay good right now, and I think they should absolutely explore doing that. However, as I said, we continue to move on. Nicholas Claxton, rim-driving, shot-swatting center who is often drawn stylistic comparisons to Mitchell Robinson. He would provide a seamless fit into the Knicks starting lineup and is on an expiring $9.6 million salary. But the Nets love him. They're fighting for the play-in tournament spot and could keep him in free agency. History suggests that a crosstown trade of any type is less than likely as well. That's the thing. The Knicks are not going to make a trade with the Nets. The Knicks and the Nets don't trade with each other. It's just how things are. Especially after the Durant and Irving stuff, I just don't see the teams making a trade. The Nets like Claxton. The Nets don't have their own draft picks, so there's no incentive to really tank. So I don't think that Nicholas Claxton is a realistic option, or I would prefer him over the idea of Clint Capella. But that's not the way that things go. So once again, in my mind, Clint Capella is still your best option. But we're not done. Stick around because we also have guys such as Nick Richards, who has a couple of years remaining on his $5 million salary. You got Daniel Gafford, who's making $12.4 million, so you could work with that exception, find a $5 million contract somewhere, maybe take someone off the Wizards and throw Fournier their way, give them an expiring deal, open up some cap space for them. And he's got $1 million raises in the next 2 seasons before he becomes a free agency. Again, though, Daniel Gafford is better than a backup center. However, Hartenstein's probably going to leave. If Isaiah Hartenstein leaves, Tom Thibodeau will be happy because he gets a guy who's very similar to Mitchell Robinson, albeit not as good, in Daniel Gafford, who essentially you can use as a backup option to Mitch or as a starter when Mitch is not there. He's a low-level starter, high-end backup, I'd say. Maybe a little higher than a low-end starter. Gafford's a good player. For sure, he's a solid player. Again, a person I'm interested in. I don't think the Grizzlies are going to trade him, though. He's not that old. I think he's like 25. The man's had a good career so far. He's one of the better players on the Washington Wizards who are abysmal. I think it's sort of important. I think he's sort of an important part of that team. And if they have Kyle Kuzma, who's nearing 30, believe it or not, they're probably not going to trade their 25-year-old starting level center. It just doesn't make too much sense to me. So really, I think that name's off the list. But now, of all those names that we just threw at you, I'm going to real quick show you a graph of my 6 favorite guys, and just we're going to see a little stat rundown. Here we go. Thank you to StatHead, aka Basketball Reference, for this. Here's my favorite options, and one of them is a guy who we did not talk about. We have Andre Drummond, Kelly Olynyk, who we did not discuss, and we'll discuss very briefly in a moment, James Wiseman, Nick Richards, Clint Capella, and Daniel Gafford. Now, Olynyk gives the Knicks a completely different look. As you can see right here, there's only 3 of these 6 guys have even a 3-point percentage logged, and 2 of them are at 0%, and that is Wiseman and Drummond, who have shot threes this year but not made one. Kelly Olynyk shoots 41.3% from 3. Considering that Karl Anthony Towns plays mainly power forward, Kelly Olynyk has the highest 3-point percentage of any center who consistently shoots threes. Now, yes, it is in a backup role. Does he play a ton of minutes? No, but, it's not the end of the world, I would say. And Olynyk would give the Knicks a completely different look than any other player that you could find. He's shooting 88% from the free throw line. He's shooting 41.3% from 3, as I said. It would definitely be a cool look to see the Knicks go 5 out. It would help with spacing for guys like Julius Randle, who's been taking less threes, and someone like RJ Barrett, who's better around the rim. I think it would be a cool option. It would definitely be a different look, though he's not a great defender. I don't think Tibbs would love this, though I'm certainly interested. I think everyone's a little more biased towards centers who can hit threes, and myself included. I'm kind of interested in the idea of Kelly Olynyk. But out of the rest of these guys, out of a guy like Daniel Gafford, who I said I don't think is realistic, and then James Wiseman, who probably costs a little too much right now. I mean, he is shooting 71.6% from the field. He's having a solid season, though he only really shoots around the rim. He doesn't play a lot of minutes, and we're seeing a guy who's averaging 7 and 4 have to step in on a playoff team and start. I'm not sure how I feel about that. If you look at Nick Richards, I think he's the cheapest option, who's pretty solid. 8.4 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, backing up Mark Williams. If the Hornets were willing to give him up because the Knicks would be willing to give a few seconds or something, then I'd say go for it. And then if you look at Drummond, you know those stats, the 6 and 7 that he's putting up, they would be better. He's also averaging a steal per game. The problem is he's only averaging 0.3 blocks, but he hardly gets minutes. Drummond's interesting. I like Drummond better than Nick Richards, so if you could get Drummond for the same price, I'd say get Drummond. And then my favorite is Clint Capella, the only one who's actually starting in the NBA right now outside of Gafford, who's not getting moved, as I said. You got 12 points, 11 rebounds per game. He's blocking nearly 2 shots. He's a high-flying rim runner. He's incredibly similar to Mitchell Robinson. Again, albeit he is not as good as Mitchell Robinson, but he is a good option that I think the Knicks should highly consider. I think the Knicks should talk to the Hawks. Even though there's a rivalry there, we did see them make the Cam Reddish trade, meaning the Knicks and the Hawks are open to negotiation with each other. And if the Hawks really want to change something up, which I think they probably should, and it seems like they've kind of wanted Clint Capella out for a little bit now, I like the idea of Clint Capella. You could play him the same way as Mitch, and no, he's not as good as Mitch, but we saw him be the starting center on a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals not that long ago, including beating up on the New York Knicks because they didn't have a guy like Mitchell Robinson to stop him. So if you play against a team with offensive centers, then yeah, Clint Capella is going to be good. He's also a very strong human being, and that is important to if the Knicks run into a team like the 76ers. Is Capella going to be able to stop Joel Embiid? No, but is he athletic, and is he a strong enough guy where he's not just going to get walked all over by Joel Embiid? Yes. And the Knicks right now, they're not playing, let's find someone as good as Mitch. Mitch is a fringe top 5 center in the NBA. They're playing, how do we commit some damage control right here, or commit to some damage control right here, because we need a big man similar enough to Mitch for our defensive system to work. We funnel guys towards the paint so Mitch could block their shots. The only guy on this list who's really good enough to be doing that is Clint Capella. And man, this was a long video. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. Let me know who you guys would want. If there's anyone on this list, maybe it's someone not on this list. Maybe you're interested in the idea of bringing in Nerlens Noel once again or something from free agency. Save the assets. Let me know in the comments below, guys. Make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel. It's the holiday season. It helps us out oh so much. And have a wonderful holidays. I don't know when this video is coming out. Potentially Christmas Eve. Maybe the day before. Maybe Christmas Day. Who knows? But Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Have a great day, guys. And go Knicks.